Hey everyone, welcome back to another 2+ video for tactics in the old world. Recently, I've changed armies from lizardmen to high elves, and while I've long been drawn to high elves, what I really liked was the option of being able to play a non-dragon high elf list that would be competitive. When the Espot online tournament ran earlier in the year, something that I consider the de facto world championships for the old world, especially given its abstract environment and the competitive nature of players who took very tuned lists in the event. One of the surprises to me, and it didn't get a lot of coverage, was that the third place player and another top 10 player had taken, oh, well, not the top 10 player, but the guy who came third had an Archmage with the Spectral Doppelganger White Sword combo going. So most people were aware of the Spectral Doppelganger and Dragon Slayer Sword combo, where you could, with successful casting, have 2d6 automatic hits, where if you were able to then roll a 6, which is probable on the odds, you could end a monster with only a ward save chance to save it. So in one hit and generally win a game in that sense. So everybody got in the lather playing it. I'd played it in Lizardmen and I'd been pretty underwhelmed to tell you the truth. Its deterrence effect was strong, but you need it to one, be cast, two, not be dispelled, and three, roll a 6, and four, for that not to be saved. And then I found in the game, which you might have seen earlier on this channel where I played Empire, you also need to be able to catch the target and not have it flee from your charge, rally, and then march away from you, which is another problem. Where the high elf version is better is, first of all, you have Lilith's Blessing, which means that you're able to re-roll that doppelganger spell. So you've got a very high chance of it actually resolving and then resolving at a high number. That makes it difficult to dispel for starters. Also, the White Sword, which is 20 more points than the Dragon Slaying Sword, gives you +3 strength and AP -2. So that gives you the Dragon Slaying Sword's a bit whiffy and very narrow, but this means that in general, that unit, like rolling up the doppelganger, is great for just making mincemeat of different units already. So if you're averaging seven strength 6, AP -2 hits, you're going to do a lot of wounds and win a lot of combats, and that's on top of whatever else you're bringing in. So that White Sword can only be taken by a unit that's on a chariot or on foot. And in this instance, the Lothan Skycutter in the High Elf unit is a great vehicle for that. It means that you can't be killing blowed and you can't be monster slayed as well. So you add your wounds to the chariot, you end up with a 7 wound unit with a 4+ armor save. Unfortunately, to guarantee doppelganger, you have to take Lore Familiar, and that's 100 points of magic items. So you end up for 375 points with a level 4 illusion mage. It generally takes Miasmic Mirage, Column of Crystal as well, and I've been a big fan of Glittering Robe. On top of that, the default, the signature spell in the lore, because I think, and someone please correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but you can't use Lore Familiar to take signature spells from your lore, because Vol's Unmaking would be pretty good here too in this for this build, but I've actually liked Glittering Robe because of the vulnerability of the chariot to the hits that it can take in not just missile fire, but in the combat phase where it needs to be defensive. So yeah, that's what I'm running at the moment. And I just wanted, as I highlighted, there were problems with the Dragon Slayer Doppelganger combo, but what you're able to do with some foresight and army design is mitigate that other weakness that it has of it being dispelled. So on the left-hand side, you can see that I've just uncoupled from a combat with the general, the Griffin, in this game that we'll highlight later in the week in a battle report. I've been able to get into combat. I've got my Glittering Robe up. I'm casting Spectral Doppelganger, but his wizard's still loose. So in the second photo to the right, on my turn, I've been able to recharge that Griffin, who's conspicuously now absent from the photo because it was taken after the fact. But what you see above, which was worth capturing, was my Griffin, who also, after the unit opposite had given ground, was able to restrain and reform and charge into the wizard that was part of the Halberdier unit you can see in the photo. So what this meant was that you can tie down the wizard, and when the wizard is in combat, it can't use its power at level 4 to dispel. So I was able to then get my spectral doppelganger off. I rolled it up successfully. It couldn't be dispelled except by faded dispel, but I'd rolled over 12. So it was a 1 in 36 chance of being able to roll that dispel. And then I rolled enough hits. I can't remember how many I rolled. I think I rolled 6. Incredibly, they all wounded anyway, but I did roll 1 6, and my opponent Michael was unable to pass his 5+ ward save, and the general just exploded, or whatever happens when you get hit by the white sword. I hope they exploding would be nice. So great value, 375 points. And then later in the game, it took down a unit of Demigriffs before falling to a hail of missile fire. So I think what the point here is that this is great for this combo. And in that sense, I also, other mobile flying units, you can kamikaze themselves into a unit. The Griffin ended up doing quite well, incredibly. But for one turn, being able to tie down the wizard meant that I was able to get my critical combo off. I think there are two other broad-based takeaways. The first one is that Magic level 4s are almost more ubiquitous than dragons and other ridden monsters at this stage. That it seems to be the first thing that everyone puts in their list. And I played a lower points count, 1,500 points than 2,000, even though I played 2,000 casually as well. I find the level 4 is more common in both formats. That's where everybody starts. So, firstly, you can the dispel bubble that the level 4 provides is its most powerful effect. So being able to stop things like Ruby Ring with a level 4 dispel, being able to stop remains in play spell, you want that level 4 to be central and to be defensive so much. In this instance, being able to tie it up takes away that ability to dispel. And I think that that's sort of the better way to be aggressively counter magic. You want to be outside the dispel bubble, or you want to take it to the wizard and just keep it busy. So on your turn, you're going to be able to guarantee that because you can pick your charges. The second thing so if you can think about, wizards generally cost about 200 points. If you can find sort of a 50-point unit to tie it up, in this instance, I had to use an expensive one, but I would say this combat won me the game. I also carry an eagle at the moment for that purpose. If that eagle loses on combat res or dies, who cares if it's managed to stop the dispelling of a game-winning spell? And I think that's the important second point it's willing to make, that a lot of people like Magic. I think overwhelmingly people are happy with how Magic works in this version of Warhammer. I think some people sort of insist that it's all powerful still. I'm not so sure. I think it's much more variable at different points in the game. So, you can have a fireball that's great on the first turn because it can create panic tests, and at the end of the game, it sort of picks off units that score you points. And that's probably the most generally efficient spell that's out there. I think other spells are very situational. Like, you could be going first, and Arcane Urgency, which is a very powerful spell, is extraordinarily powerful on the first turn because you're starting 24 inches apart in most scenarios. So that player going first is not, the other player is just not going to be able to dispel it, and they're going to get that free Arcane Urgency off. Whereas as the game progresses, the wizards tend to be close to the other. When you're rolling level 4 versus level 4, it's only slightly better than 50% that you're getting them off, and it is a bit of a crapshoot. So what happens is that at different points in the game, spells are worth more. Arcane Urgency is probably not worth a lot at the end of the game, where moving troops around doesn't matter anymore as much. So it's certainly not as important in that first turn where you can completely manipulate the distance between opponents, which is a huge part of the skill of the game. So I think, and I've had some success with lesser mages carrying dispel scrolls, what we used to call dispel caddies, that you sort of want to dispel that critical spell on turn 2 or turn 3. And this is a version of that where the Griffin here is able to get in and block the ability of that wizard to have an influence on the game, leaving my wizard able to do its thing, which, predictably, I guess the odds are in my favor. I was able to win a game winning combat right there. So I think that tempo of Magic is important to establish. And tactically, you should be thinking about, how are you going to counter the opposing level 4? Are you going to stay out of its dispel bubble? Are you going to go straight at it? And if you are, at what turn when you start to deploy against particular types of magics. So perhaps in this case, illusion, which has short ranges, you might want to be into it later in the game where they come forward, or are you risking Miasmic Mirage getting off, that sort of thing? You need to sort of quantify when the best time to sort of attack that Wizard of, and what sort of risks are you willing to take, what units are you willing to give up to make that happen. So in that sense, Magic can be very powerful, but if you can tie down the Magic user, and if you're costing it costs you 100, 200 points of units, that might be worth it if it's stopping that magician or sorcerer or mage or whatever from being able to then have an influence over the whole game that's worth more than that. A lot of the tactical advice that you hear on the internet about magic, I think sometimes assumes that the spells that they're casting never get dispelled. What you find in practical games is magic's a lot messier, and this is a great way of actually shutting off the tap for armies that are probably over-relying on magic in this format. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any comments on this strategy or on this tactic in the forums or the chat below, I would appreciate it. If you can give us any other insight into how you think we could improve our play in Warhammer or even the channel itself, please let us know. We'd love to hear from you. So thanks again. See you next time.